Good morning, everyone. Should I just do the whole? All right. So good morning, everyone. I'm going to get started because we don't have tons of time. And good morning to the people on the phone. So we're doing this as a live webinar as well because there's some people who want to participate who aren't at the conference. So for the folks who are on the phone, if you want to ask a question at any point, use the raise my hand feature, and then we'll unmute your phone and you'll be able to ask a question. For everybody else who's in the room, obviously, you can just chat out your questions without raising your hand. So I'm Mike Hollander. I work at Community Legal Services, and this is going to be a presentation on a program that I put together that basically helps to complete expungements. And it does it in a way that's a lot faster than what you can do by hand. So really quickly, I want to just give a little background on why I made this and why a computer works well for this. And the reason I'm doing this is because partly just so you understand what my motivation was, but partly because I think what I did for expungements is translatable to other areas that we work in the law. And so I want you to understand what the things that make a good petition or project, what makes it something that's going to make sense to do some sort of automation for. So expungement petitions in general are uncomplicated from a legal standpoint. There's really not that much law that you need to know to fill out an expungement petition. You do need to know what an expungement is. You do need to know what types of crimes are expungible, which ones are not. You need to know what an expungement is versus a redaction. There are a number of different rules that you need to know, but they're pretty clear black and white rules that you can follow, as opposed to many other areas of the law where there's a lot of gray area. So black and white rules are great for computers, right? This is also, it's a repetitive process. I mean, basically what you're doing when you're doing an expungement petition is you evaluate somebody's docket sheet, you decide if it's an expungement or not, and then once you've decided you have to do an expungement or a redaction, all you're doing is you're copying information from the online court web docket sheet or from your case management system onto a Word document that is ultimately printed out. So really what you're doing is you have some thought involved, and then you're just copying and pasting information. You're not writing a legal brief. The brief is the same every time. Another thing that's fantastic about this is this has become uniform statewide. So petitions in Philadelphia look the same as petitions in Lebanon, and they look the same as petitions in Allegheny County, which means that we can make one program and make it available to everybody within the state who's using or who's doing expungements. And then the last thing, this is more for me, you know, I found doing expungements pretty boring. It's tedious work. It's really, really, really important work for our clients. And we do them because of that. They really help people get jobs. But at the same time, it's not that fun to sit there and copy information from a PDF onto a Word document. It takes a while. You make mistakes. You really have to keep an attention to detail. And if you're doing an expungement or expungements for someone who might have 5 or 6 arrests, and you could be for hours just staring at docket sheets and copying information back and forth. So I find that really boring and time-consuming, and that is perfect for bringing a computer in. So again, this next slide, why an expungement generator? I mean, again, this is just showing on the right is the uniform petition that we're supposed to be using. And basically what you can see is if you look at a docket sheet, all the information from the docket sheet is just getting copied over onto this form. And this is something that we can do, but this is something that a computer can do really well, and we don't need to spend our time doing. We can spend our time doing other things that will help our clients. The other thing is the law here is, again, it's relatively settled. There's not much, you know, there are changes in expungement law, but not that many. And so this is perfect too. And the stability of it is really helpful because it means that we're not constantly changing the expungement generator or what our petitions look like based on some new ruling that came down. Docket sheets around the state also look almost exactly the same. And this actually is not true in many states. So while there is a big problem, I think it's certainly a double-edged sword that all of our clients' criminal records are online and accessible to everyone, and that makes it really difficult. What's helpful is it makes it, as an advocate trying to seek an expungement, great, because you can go on and in one place you can pull down all of this person's criminal record information. It looks exactly the same. It's very easy to read and understand, and you can use that to prepare the expungement petition. I was speaking with somebody in New Jersey the other day, and you know, they have the advantage that these docket sheets aren't available online, at least not in most counties. They might be available in some counties. And the ones that they can get, if they are online, look different from county to county. And then the ones that they can't get, they actually have to go to the courthouses for every single place, which is great for our clients in the sense that it makes it harder for them to have people doing informal criminal background checks of them, but it makes it really hard to prepare expungements for them and to seal their record in any way. So, there's an advantage here, and in terms of us being able to do this with a computer, if the docket sheets look the same, there's key things that are on every single docket sheet. So it might say arrest date, and then there's a date. Computers are great at looking for patterns like that, and they're great at taking those patterns, processing them, and then putting them into another document. So the expungement generator was sort of an outgrowth of sort of my working on expungements for a long time. Before I went to law school, I was also a computer programmer, so it sort of melded well with my background. So I put this thing together. CLS owns it and runs it now. The website for it is https://www.expungementgenerator.org. You need a login to use it, so if you're interested in using it, you need to email me or talk to me afterwards, and I can get you set up. We currently have 6 or 7 attorneys in Philadelphia that are using it, and then I started a pilot project about 4 months ago with 4 attorneys around the state who have been using it for a few months, doing things outside of Philadelphia, because at first we were only using it in Philadelphia, just to make sure it worked well with the magisterial district courts, and sometimes the docket sheets look a little bit different outside of Philadelphia than within Philadelphia. But we've generated well over 1,000 petitions in Philadelphia and outside. Just since mid-April alone, which is when I started tracking how many CLS is filing, CLS generated 340 petitions in about 4 months. And that's really just 2 people doing it. I mean, there's 6 of us that are signed up, but it's mostly 2 people. So it really has made it possible to prepare lots and lots of petitions in a really short period of time. I would say that a normal petition, and you'll see, and you guys, your experience may vary, but for me it takes between 20 and 30 minutes to prepare an expungement petition for somebody, maybe 35 minutes if it's really complicated, or 40 minutes. But someone might have 10 petitions, and so that could mean that you're taking 2-3 hours to prepare all of their petitions, which is a lot of time to spend on one person for expungement. With the expungement generator, no matter how many petitions you have, it takes basically the same amount of time, and the amount of time that it takes is the amount of time it takes to fill out a form. So it's about 2 to 5 minutes to do an expungement using the expungement generator. So it's cut down on the amount of time that you need to spend immensely. Now, you do have to go back afterwards and check to make sure that it's done everything correctly, make sure it's caught everything, because it's a computer, it makes mistakes. It doesn't always catch things that you might catch because we're a lot smarter than the computer is. So I would always tell you whenever you're doing this to do it, it takes a couple minutes to prepare, but then go back and check over to make sure everything's right. But it still saves an unbelievable amount of time. So what does it create for you? So it creates expungement and redaction petitions. It creates, if you're outside of Philadelphia, it'll actually create a separate IFP petition that a couple different counties have said work out, and you can use them in those different counties. In Philadelphia, it creates a certification that's part of the petition itself that's essentially the same as the separate IFP petition. It creates an overview. So it creates a file that says, hey, here are all of the docket sheets that you uploaded to the expungement generator, and here's whether or not an expungement's able to be prepared, or redaction's able to be prepared. And it also says, here's how much this person might owe in fines and costs, and here's how much this person might owe in bail money, which in Philadelphia at least has become a big issue to understand how much people owe to the court and whether they're able to get expungements or not, and how that's affected. It should also be able to handle Court of Common Pleas cases, magisterial district court cases, and Philadelphia municipal court cases. And it understands that cases get tracked through the system. So in Philadelphia, for example, whenever you get arrested, you end up in municipal court. But if it's a more serious crime, after your preliminary hearing, you end up in Court of Common Pleas. So you end up with 2 docket sheets for the same crime. And it recognizes that, it combines them together, and makes just one expungement petition for all of those, which is very helpful. It also can do summary offenses. So, if you were found guilty of a summary offense, but then you have some period where you were arrest-free for 5 years, it will also prepare an expungement petition for you. So instead of showing you the slides with the input and output, what I'm going to do is do a live presentation of how this works. So when you come to the main website, you'll see this. It says, welcome to the Expungement Generator. Please log in. So nobody can use this unless they've been able to, unless they've gotten a login from me. So you'll see in the middle there's a big login by clicking here button. You'll click it. I'm going to log in as Scott Williams just because I recently created his user. So once you've logged in, you'll see that the screen changes. You can see that you're logged in as Scott Williams, and there's a couple of things that you could do at this point. One, and I think this is, I can't emphasize this enough, once you're logged in, there's a help button. And the help button has, very similar to the document that I handed out earlier that's in front, is there's steps that tell you how to use the expungement generator. And if you click on any of these steps, it gives you information about what that step is. It gives you more detailed information. It gives you pictures. So it helps you to do all of the steps of the expungement generator. So if you're ever lost, if you're using it, you can't remember how to continue using it, I recommend first going to the help area and figuring out if your answer's in there in terms of all the different steps that are there. The other thing is you can see on the top right it says logged in as Scott Williams. If you click your name, it comes to a profile page. So you can see Scott Williams, his email address, his name, and then this is the header that would appear on any petition for him, and this is the signature that would appear on any petition for him. So when you log in, you can edit your own information. If you don't like the way that I've created your header and your signature, you can go in and change it so it meets whatever form you want it to meet. And then the last thing you'll see, and this is the most important when you're on the screen, if you go to Expunge, it brings you to this page that allows you to type in information about your client. So let's pretend that we have a client that came to us, and let's say that his name is, John Smith, super generic name. So how do you go step by step through this process? And this is how I do it, and I'm sure there's other ways that people will want to do it. But what I think the easiest thing to do first is you go to the UJS portal website, which actually didn't bring that up. Is it .pa courts? Here it is. So you go to the UJS portal website, and you're going to search for this person's docket sheet. So you go to docket sheets. I don't know if people have done this before, but this is a public website where you can download anyone's docket sheet. You go to docket sheets, and then you go to common pleas court, or if you think somebody might have a magisterial district case, so if you're on one of the counties, you probably want to go to magisterial district courts as well, because that won't pull up information from if you go to the court common pleas search. So you have to go to both of them. I'll just do this one. So we put in the participant's name. And of course, John Smith's going to come up with a lot of people. Let's at least put in Jonathan. And then let's try to limit it a little bit. I wouldn't normally put a county in because you'd want to get statewide their records, but I just want to limit this a little bit. And I'll put in only closed cases for now, just to try and limit this for the presentation. So you say search, and what you get now is all of your client's records, or all of the records of anyone named Jonathan Smith. And hopefully with the date of birth and with some other information, you can figure out which ones are your clients and which ones are just other people. So you see there's this long list of different crimes, and there's actually one Jonathan Smith who seems to have been born on April 22nd, 1969, who has a number of crimes in a row. And so what I would do is I would, for each of these different docket sheets, I would mouse over this little thing on the left side and then click on docket sheet. And what that'll do is it'll open a PDF for each of his different arrests. So I'll just open a few of them. And then the other thing that you want to do is you want to download one of the court summaries. So on one of the cases, instead of selecting docket sheet, you'd select court summary. And so what that'll do now is it'll open up these PDFs. You can see here's this individual, John Smith, and you can see this record. So this was a good one. He was charged with 5 crimes. He pled guilty to 2 of them, it looks like, and then 3 of them, or he pled guilty to 3 of them, and 2 of them were withdrawn. So this is eligible for expungement. Now, whether or not you want to do this expungement, that's something that you need to evaluate as the lawyer. Is it worth expunging somebody's record when they have a number of serious crimes on their record that they were found guilty of, that's a totally different question. The Expungement Generator doesn't think about that. It's sort of stupid. It just takes in whatever information you give it, and it'll spit out the expungements. But this is available to be expunged. So what you do is you take this docket sheet and you save it. So you can hit the Save button at the top left, or if you're in Internet Explorer, I believe that if you put your mouse in the bottom of the screen, it'll show up in the bottom right. And you'd say Save, and you save it to a folder. So what I usually do is I make a folder for my client. And you'd save all these different docket sheets. So I'll save that one, and I'll close it. I'll save this one. We'll call this CP Report 1. You can name these based on the docket number if you want. Or you can just, it doesn't matter what you name them. That's just more for whether it's easy for you to find it later based on what you've named it. And then it's helpful to have this docket sheet, the overall one. I think partly it's helpful because then you have it in your folder and you can kind of get an overview of this person's criminal experience, and you can see if it's worth actually doing an expungement for this person. But it's also helpful because you can very quickly sort of check the expungement petitions and make sure they were filled out correctly. The other thing is the Expungement Generator uses this summary. Sometimes there's information that does not appear on the docket sheets that does appear on the summary. So for example, the judge, the final judge that made the disposition, doesn't always appear in an easy-to-find place on the docket sheet, but it does almost always appear in the summary. So I always recommend downloading the summary and sending that to the Expungement Generator as well. So we'll save this as well. It's named Court Summary. So now I've downloaded all of this individual's criminal records. So what I would do now is I would come to the Expungement Generator, and I would start filling out the information. So Jonathan Smith, we'll put in an address, 123 Fake Street, Pittsburgh, PA, and then what's the Pittsburgh zip code? 15222? Okay. And then you put in whatever their social security number is. You'd have to get the PP number and the SID number. I don't know how people do that in different counties. Some counties you have to call the courthouse. Sometimes people might know their PP number. But you have to get their PP and SID number. You'd put those in as well. And then you'd want to type. That's possible. I don't know that. Is that true?
I think it's just Philly.
Is it just Philly? Okay. So if you don't have a PP number, you can leave that blank, and that's fine. No one's ever brought that up before, though. That's an interesting point. And the last thing that you want to do is you want to put in aliases. So we just made this folder for John Smith. And you'll see if you look at the summary, John Smith has 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8 different aliases. And so you need to make sure that these are going into the expungement petition. Because when you get this record expunged, you want to make sure the court knows about all of this person's aliases. So I'm just going to type in a couple of them because we don't need to for this demonstration. William Carter. And then I always also put in the person's real name as an alias, because in some of the cases, when they were arrested, the arrest is going to be under one of the alias names, not under their real name. So you want to make sure that their real name is listed as an alias also. So when the expungement petition is done and when the court sees it, their real name is showing up, and that gets removed from that real name record. So you'd enter all of the different aliases separated by commas. And then this is the important part. What you do is you click on this browse button here. So this is the file. You're going to select all the files that you want to send to the Expungement Generator. So you click Browse. You navigate to the folder that you're looking for, John Smith. And you click on the first one, the first expungement or the first PDF that you have in here, and then you hold Shift and you click on the last one, and that allows you to select multiple different PDFs. If for some reason you only want to select 1 or 2 of these, you can click and then you can hold Control and click different ones, and it'll allow you to select not all of them. Again, I recommend sending all of them up there because there are times when people will have the same case that gets tracked through all the time, or that gets tracked through, and so there might be multiple docket sheets that are really the same case. So it's helpful to always be uploading everything at the same time. It also saves you time because it means that you're not sending one petition at a time to the expungement generator and then you're having to retype all this information every time. So if you have one person that has multiple petitions, you'd click and you'd select them all. And you should always, again, select this court summary because that's going to help the expungement generator pull some information. You say open. This doesn't work in Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer doesn't let you select multiple files. So you can use the expungement generator in Internet Explorer, but it does not let you do more than one petition at a time. So I would recommend, if you could, if you have the option, to download either Firefox, Safari, or Google Chrome. Those are all other web browsers. They work very similarly to Microsoft Internet Explorer if you haven't used them before, and they will let you select multiple petitions at a time. This very last checkbox you probably don't want to check, and actually I'm probably going to be removing it soon. 2 years ago, the state created these statewide petitions that are uniform throughout the state. Before then, we were able to use whatever petition we wanted to create expungements. And so when I first made this, I made this with the petition that we were using in Philadelphia. And it's a nicely formatted petition. We had been using it for years, but we don't have to use it anymore. We use the statewide one. So if you leave this clicked, it uses the statewide petition that everyone's supposed to be using around the state. I was told by 1 or 2 people that in a few counties they still want you to use the older style of petitions. I don't know if that's actually true still. So I've left this checkbox up on here. So if you want, you can unclick it, and it will use an older petition, but I would recommend always keeping it clicked. When you're done, when you've filled out all of this, you're satisfied that's all correct, you've gotten all the docket sheets in here, you'll hit Send Files. And what this does is this is now uploading the PDF docket sheets to the expungement generator. The expungement generator is looking at all of these different files, figuring out which ones expungements are appropriate for and which ones they're not appropriate for. There's an error that I found that were not appropriate for, and then it's creating expungement petitions. It's creating the IFP petitions, creating the overview. It's creating all of those different things. So before I click in and show you what the output is, does anyone have any questions up to this point about downloading the petitions or filling out the form or anything like this? Anyone on the phone? No? Okay. So what you get is this: the screen that it comes out with is a screen that gives you basic information about the case, about what happened. So it will list all of the different petitions that you uploaded. So in this case, we uploaded 3 different petitions plus that summary. So it says, you know, it's looked at this case, the first one, CP02CR 00127522-2003, and it's decided that an expungement's not possible on it. And we'll go back and check to make sure that's true in a minute. It's looked at the next one and it's decided that a redaction is possible. That's probably the one that we pulled up that had the 3 guilty pleas and the 2 withdrawn charges. Then on the last case, it's again decided that an expungement's not possible for this person. So it's performed those expungements, or the ones that are appropriate, and then it makes a zip file. So you can see there's a blue link right here. It says Download Petition and Overview. So what you do is you click on that, and you can either save this to your hard disk, or what I prefer to do is if you just say Open, what it does is it opens a folder. And you'll see there's a few different things in here, and I'm going to make this into a list so you can just see what these are called. So you can see that what it's done is it's made any petition names based on the person's name, the docket number of the case that it was working on, and then it says if it's a redaction or an expungement. Or if it's an IFP petition in this case, because Jonathan Smith, this is from outside of Philadelphia, so it generated an IFP petition for him as well. It also generates this overview file that I'll show you in a second. So what I always do is I highlight these, I go to Edit, Copy, and then I go to the folder that we had downloaded all of the docket sheets into, and go to Edit, Paste. And so now those documents are saved into your folder. Do you have a question? Okay. Yeah. If they're, yes. Right. So what you'll see in all, yeah. So the question was that I said earlier that the expungement generator will track cases from magisterial district courts through Court of Common Pleas, and if that's true, if there's a case that moves from one to the other, will it list multiple expungements or just one? The answer is that you'll see more output, and I'll show you in a minute. At the top, what it'll show you is that it's combining cases together. So you'll see at the top combining this case and that case, so CP whatever and MDJ whatever. And then below it'll just say performing expungement on the one case. So it will still only produce one petition, but it will tell you there'll be output that showed you that they're connected. So the first thing I'm going to show you guys is the overview file. And I think this file is really helpful, and I use it to track a client as he goes through the entire expungement process, because you fill out an expungement, it's granted, and then you have the certified orders that you have to send or that the court sends to the different agencies. And then you're getting confirmations back from the different agencies. So I actually will put notations in this file as I get letters back from the different agencies, just to say I got the order, or I got the the state police has told me that they've redacted or expunged all cases with OTN G2908581. So I'll write in here, state police or something. So I know that I've gotten that state police report. I find it a handy way to copy. But what you can see, again, is you see basic information about the person, their name, their date of birth, the PP number, which I guess is not relevant outside of Philadelphia, the SID. And then you see each case information. And again, it's very basic information. I didn't want to have a lot in here. It has the case number. It has the OTN number, because that's how the state police reports will come back to you, is based on OTN number. And then it says whether an expungement or redaction was possible. And then again, it's pulled off the costs and fines and the bail that this person might owe. So it's a good way to just get a quick overview of your client to know, do they owe money? Do they owe bail money? Is that going to interfere with their ability to get a pardon or a redaction or whatever you're trying to work on for them? So that's the overview file. The next file that's important to look at is an actual, I believe I just opened the expungement. Yeah, so the next file that's important to look at is the expungement. So you can see that from uploading that information, what it's done is it's now created an entire expungement order and petition. So this was Scott Williams. So the top of this has Scott Williams' information on it. It has the case caption, and then it has all the case information on it, the Court of Common Pleas, Trial Division, Allegheny County. It figured out that's where it was from. It got the OTN number. It got the PP number, because I typed that in. It pulled off, let's see. So then you can see below, it's figured out, first of all, that the charges were withdrawn. So it's figured out what the disposition of the charges that are being redacted are. And it's figured out that it's a redaction, not an expungement. And then you can see below, here's the actual petition. And I think the page is just getting cut off a little bit. There's the rest of it. So you can see below, it's pulled all this person's information. I never put the date of birth in for that person. That was pulled off of one of the docket sheets. The address, it finds who the judge is, and it finds the judge's address. It has the docket number, again, the OTN number, and then it has the police department that did the arrest. So it figured out that the Pittsburgh Police Department did the arrest, and that the Pittsburgh Police Department, Allegheny County, that's their address. There must not have been a date of arrest that was listed in there, which is why there's not one listed. And there wasn't an affiant that was listed, so that's not in there. So sometimes some information is just not found in the docket sheet, and so there's nothing to put in there. And then you can see the charges to be expunged, and it's figured out everything about them. So it knows the code section, it knows what the charge was, it knows if there was a grading in there, it has the grading, it has the disposition date, it has the final disposition of the charge. So this is something that is ready to be printed out. It has all the agencies listed that this should be sent to. So the clerk of courts, the district attorney, the state police, the expungement unit, the police department, and probation and parole. It's all listed on there already, and this is all ready to be printed out. And then after the order itself there's a petition. The petition looks essentially the same as the order. It just has some slightly different language on there. But again, all of the same information's on here. The person's name, their address, their date of birth, social security number, the different offenses. And then it includes the basic language about why the expungement is appropriate. So this is causing embarrassment and loss of job opportunities and things like that, the standard things that we put in there. And then I've been using electronic signatures, and people can take that off if they don't want an electronic signature. But it's just the courts in Philadelphia have never complained about us just putting /s/ and then the name, and it has the date. So again, I've been talking about this for a while, but really this took about 10 seconds to prepare this expungement petition. And again, this is just ready to be printed. The number of copies that need to be made can be made, and then it's ready to be turned into the court. And then accompanying this, you'll see there's a petition to proceed in forma pauperis. And again, it includes all the different case information, and then it has information that says, kindly allow this petitioner to proceed in form of pauperous. I certify that this petitioner has been found by North Penn Legal Services, so it'd say the name of your program, to be financially eligible, and then it has a small order by the court that the court can sign. And again, this is something that if you're in one of the counties that requires you to file this separately, you could just open this up, print it, and it's ready to go, so you don't have to do any work beyond just feeding everything into the expungement generator. So that's the basic usage of the generator. Do you guys have questions about anything that I just showed you? Because I'll show you some additional things that it does or can do in a moment. Anyone have any questions? I'm glad this is so clear. I won't get any emails asking me about it afterwards, too.
This is 490 and 790.
So this word is 490 and 790. It will do ARD as appropriate if someone was assigned to ARD, but obviously it doesn't know if they've completed ARD, and it doesn't have the completion letter. So you need to attach the completion letter and make sure they've done it. But if it does say ARD on the person's record, it will generate an expungement petition for that person. Whether or not you can use it is something that you're going to have to evaluate. And actually, before I switch back, what I want to do is look at this person's docket sheets, because we never actually looked at these to see which ones were appropriate for expungement or they weren't. And this is really what you should be doing when you're done. So this was one of the cases that it said that an expungement was not appropriate for. And as we scroll down, we can see that in this case, this person pled guilty to every charge that's on here. So this was not appropriate for an expungement, so it makes sense that that was not given an expungement. This next one, I believe this is the one that we generated the expungement for. And again, we can see that there are 2 withdrawn charges. And you can see up at the top, there's actually some of the information is missing. So there is no arrest date that's listed, and that's usually listed up at the top right here. And there's nothing listed, and I'm not sure why it's not on here. And there's no arresting officer that's actually listed. So that's why there was no arresting officer on the petition itself. And you should be able to see at the very bottom, you can see this person owed $372. They paid $60 off, and they owe $312 still, and that was on the petition as well. And then this last case, well, look, this one it said expungement wasn't appropriate either, and we can see this person pled guilty to 2 different charges, and they're not summaries. So this person, again, it did the proper thing. It didn't do an expungement. And you should always be checking over either by looking at the individual docket sheets or going back to the summary. And what I'll often do is I'll generate all the expungements. I'll print the summary petition out. So I have, or the summary docket sheet out. So I have it on my desk. And one by one, I look at a petition, match it against the summary. I mark, a check mark next to the summary on the summary of the arrest to make sure that I have that included as a petition. And then I close that petition. And when I go through all of the petitions I've generated, I should at the end have a check mark next to every single case that's appropriate for expungement. And if one's missing, then I can start to say, well, why is this missing? Did it not generate one and I had the docket sheet, or did I not download the docket sheet for some reason? And that happens sometimes because the name was under an alias and for some reason it didn't come up. Do you see this? It's fine. Okay. So I want to show you, I have some other petitions that I've downloaded, so I'm not going to put any information in here. You can actually generate expungements without ever having put in any information about the client. The expungement won't be valid. It'll be missing all of that same information on the petition itself. But sometimes it is a helpful way if someone walks in your office, you've downloaded all their docket sheets, and you don't feel like filling out all the information. You just want to quickly get a bird's eye view of what their record is and whether or not it's expungible. I find that this could be a quick way, if you have 10 or 12 petitions, which some people do have, to get a quick overview of this person, whether it's going to be worth doing expungements or not. I'm just going to do it for test purposes. So you can see, so I'll do an MDJ one just to show you that the MDJ ones work. So I selected an MDJ docket sheet, and again, it's doing an expungement on this docket sheet, and the same types of information are going to be printed out. And you can see with the MDJ, this is doing, when you look below, it's pursuant to Criminal Rule 490 because it's a magisterial district court. So it picks up that this is a magisterial district court. Another thing that it picks up that's really helpful is it picks up the court number, and it knows it has a list in the database for the expungement generator. I downloaded all of the different addresses of the magisterial district courts. So if there's a judge listed on there, it has their address on there, so you don't have to go to the court website and look for that now and find it on your own. It should find it for you. And if you do find that there's a mistake on there, let me know, and I can just update the database, because obviously those things change. And you can see for this one, this person had been charged with a summary offense. They were found not guilty, and so this is appropriate for expungement. That's the only thing that's on there. There's another example. Yeah. Does it look for what? It does look for the 5-year window. I think I have on here a summary. I might not have one. I don't know that I thought I had one that had a summary on here, but I might not. But yeah, it does look for the 5-year window. It should be noted, and actually, I don't know if you saw, there's a small error that's showing up on the page now when you do the expungement. It said could not find the attorney bar information. That's a mistake that that I made yesterday when I was changing something. But usually on the right-hand side, there's a list of disclaimers, and one of the disclaimers is that it looks for any 5-year window that was free after this arrest. And so if you were arrested in 2005 and convicted of a summary, or excuse me, like 1995 and convicted of a summary offense, and then 1996 you were arrested again, 1997 you were arrested again, and then like in 2010 you were arrested again, you know, a lot of us would say you're not necessarily eligible for a summary expungement because you had arrests right afterwards, and you have arrests that are within the last 5 years now. But there is a 10-year window where that person had no arrests, and technically under the statute, that person is available or is able to get a summary expungement. So that's something that, again, as the attorney, you should decide how much you want to push it with your local courts if you're going to file that. But it will look to see if there's any 5-year period that was arrest-free, and if there was, then it'll create an expungement petition. One of the things, and this will actually answer your question from before, so this is a client that I had that has a lot of arrests. You can see this person has, I don't even know how many files this is. This is like 25 arrests or something. Really interesting client, and most of these are available for expungement or redaction, or they've been expunged, some of them. But this would have taken me forever to do. I mean, this would have just taken such a long time. I know this is a rare case, but it does come up, and I have had more than a dozen clients, I'd say, in the last 4 years that have had more than 10 arrests. And so that just takes forever to prepare all of those petitions. But with this, again, you just select them all. You click on the first one, shift-click on the last one. It selects all of them. You say Open. And then you say Send. And now this is going to take a little bit longer because it's more files to upload. But what's going to happen, again, you're going to see that it's going to start combining cases. So you're going to see, you know, case CP whatever was combined with case MC whatever. Excuse me. And it's ultimately going to generate, I think, 15 to 20 expungement and redaction petitions for this individual. So you can see it's combining a bunch of cases. And you can actually see with this third one and fourth one down, the same CP case in this case was attached to 2 different municipal court cases. And I don't know if that happens with magisterial district courts, but that happens in Philadelphia not infrequently. If there's multiple victims of, say, an assault, they might charge that as 2 separate incidents as opposed to 2 counts on the same incident. So you might actually be combining 2 or 3 arrests into one expungement petition. And then you can see for this person that it's, you know, for a lot of these it's performing expungements, no expungements possible. But ultimately what you end up with, again, oh, and you can see on the right now all these disclaimers are here. I'm not sure why that wasn't coming up before. But you can see the disclaimers. You know, summary offenses are expunged with any 5-year period arrest-free. A or D expungements don't check for completion, and so on. Yes?
Will it include cases that are transferred from non-traffic docket?
The question was, will it include cases that were transferred to non-traffic docket? I believe that the answer is yes. And those are the ones with the NT in there?
NT, right.
Yes, anything, I believe NT does get picked up, so anything that's been transferred to non-traffic should be picked up as long as you're uploading it to the generator. Was there another hand I saw? No? So again, with this person, you know, we would click, and you can see for this person, you know, an incredible number of petitions are generated, and I'm not going to open them all, but if you look at the overview, you know, you can see there's lots and lots of cases in here. And it will, again, list when there's two cases that are combined, and it'll put them into one box just so you can see that. And you can see this person, basically didn't owe any costs and fines, and most of these are available for expungement. So this saved me, probably a full day's worth of work to be able to fill this out and just print these petitions out. And, of course, it still takes time because you have to go and you have to check over the work, and you still have to print this in Philadelphia. At least I have to print these each 4 times and get them ready to give to the court. But this might have taken me an hour and a half to do instead of 8 to 10 hours to do. So this alone made it worth made it worth making this and using this. There's someone in my office who, when she has a single petition to generate, she will do it by hand still because she doesn't like to use the computer. She feels like it slows her down a little bit, so she does it by hand. But if there's multiple ones, even she, who is the complainer about using technologies, will continue to use the generator because she recognizes that it does save her time at some point. So that's the basic functionality. I'm always looking to add additional things. So if you guys start using it, and I hope that you will, and I hope you'll come up afterwards and ask to have a login created for yourself. First of all, when you have problems, because there will be problems, sometimes it will think something's a redaction when it should be an expungement, or it'll think something's a redaction when it's not a redaction or an expungement. I want you to email me to tell me that this happened, because every time you guys find an error and send it to me, I can figure out what's wrong. It's because it's just computer code that I wrote, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and I fixed a lot of the mistakes, but I'm sure there's still ones out there. So it's very helpful for you guys to send in errors to me to tell me, here's an error, here's the docket sheet that the error was on, and here's what happened. And so I can use that, and then I can go back and fix it. So that's one thing. The other thing is I'm always looking to add new things. So this IFP petition that it prints out for people outside the county, I just added that about a month ago because Deb Steves had asked me to do that. She said that she was still spending time preparing IFP petitions for these same ones, and all the information's already in there. Can't we just have it generate it for us? And so, oh, okay, that should be pretty easy. And so I did that. So if you have ideas like that, that's fantastic. For Philadelphia, for community legal services, we're actually able to save all of the information that we've generated. So if a CLS attorney does an expungement, it actually will save all of the information about that person's expungement, arrests, what they were arrested for, what the disposition was, what the year was. All of that information is saved into a database so that we can later go back not only and look at what kinds of things we got expunged, but we can start generating information to use for advocacy work, which is great. Unfortunately, we haven't figured out a way in terms of the ethical rules to do that for other programs outside of community legal services, since there's attorney-client privilege, and this would probably violate attorney-client privilege. So when all of you guys generate expungements, nothing's being saved. The expungement's being generated, and then everything disappears as soon as the expungement's generated. You download this file, and it doesn't exist anymore. So nothing's being saved. But what I am starting to track, and this is actually what I did yesterday, is every time you file a petition or every time you generate a petition, it increments a counter associated with your user. So I'll be able to see, and you can always ask me if you're curious, but I'll be able to see around the state who's using this. Are there certain programs that are using this a lot? Maybe we should do trainings there. Or are there certain programs that aren't using it? Maybe we should do trainings there because they should be using it. So we could just start looking for information about who's using it around the state, how much we're using it, and how much time this is saving us and helping us. Again, there are disclaimers on the side. Just to go over them really quickly, because we have a couple minutes left. Summary offenses, again, any 5-year period, arrest-free after that summary conviction will be generated. Expungement petition will be generated. ARD expungements obviously don't check for ARD completion. You have to do that yourself. So it will generate a petition, but you need to make sure that your client has it and you're attaching the ARD completion letter. Expungements are prepared even if fines or costs are owed. In Philadelphia, at least for a little while, we thought that that was an issue and that they weren't actually completing the expungements when someone owes fines or costs. It turns out that they probably are, or at least they're doing it enough that it's coming off of the public record and commercial databases. But if that's a problem outside of Philadelphia, just be aware of the fact that if your judge isn't going to grant an expungement because someone owes bail money to the court, you might not want to print that one out. Section 17 and probation without verdict no expungement petition will be generated. You have to do that one by hand. I haven't fixed that yet, and I want to, but it's taking a little bit of time. Sometimes there's weird cases. So sometimes someone will write to me and say, the expungement generator didn't work for this case. Here's the docket sheet. And it's the kind of docket sheet that, as a lawyer, me and that person who sent it to me will talk on the phone for 45 minutes about the docket sheet because we don't really know what happened. It takes so long to figure out sometimes because someone was found guilty, and then there was a reverse disposition, and then they might have had another trial, and the docket sheet's so confusing that we can't figure it out. The generator can't figure it out either. And so just be aware, if you have a really complicated case, it's worth sending to me, but there's a decent chance that I'm just going to write back and say, this is going to come up once every 2,000 cases. This is not worth fixing because it's just too complicated. One thing I am thinking about doing is trying to make the generator able to detect complicated cases, so it can at least flag for you that it doesn't think an expungement's appropriate or it thinks it's a redaction, but it can have some sort of a marking next to it that says, by the way, this was a complicated case, so I thought it was a redaction, but it might not be. You really want to check this one over extra carefully. Rule 490 petitions actually do generate the proper magistrate, judge, and address. So I just need to remove that. That was something that used to not be on that I changed. So again, that's the expungement generator. Do you guys have any questions? And if you don't, please let me know if you want to use it, and I'll set up a username and password for you, and then we can obviously set up time to talk if you have any more questions in the future. Sure. You can. So these are, I actually did leave something out. So these files are not Word documents. I'm opening them in Word, and if you have Word 2007 or later, you can open them in Word and it'll work just fine. So, this document is open. If I realize Jonathan Smith is wrong, it's Jonathan R. Smith. You can edit that, save it, and everything's fine. If you don't have Word 2007 or later on your computer, there's a free program called OpenOffice. It's just like Microsoft Office, but it's a free program that's distributed. These files are actually OpenOffice files that it's generating, so you'll have to talk to your IT person at your office about downloading OpenOffice onto your computer. OpenOffice in the end looks just like Word, and it works just like Word, so if you have that on your computer, you'll be able to open these documents in OpenOffice instead of Microsoft Word, and you'll be able to edit them there as well. Right. So the answer is yes. So the way I've decided to do this is the logins are all keyed to the attorney and their bar ID number and their signature. So I know that a lot of people told me that there were paralegals that are preparing the petitions with the attorney's name on them, which is totally fine, and it's a great way to use the resources in your office. So what I've just asked people to do in that situation is the paralegals who are doing it to use Scott's or whoever the attorney's login is, and as many people can log in at the same time with the same person's name. It's not checking to see if one person's logged in and kicking somebody else off or anything like that. So yeah, so if there's 3 paralegals that are all doing expungements for one attorney at the same time, that's totally fine. Does anyone else have any other questions? Sharon? What do you mean? That's a good question. So the question was whether we can do pro se petitions where we want to generate a petition that would just be given to an individual for them to file on their own. So that would basically be the exact same petition, but no attorney name would appear on it. I guess that's possible. I hadn't done it, but yeah, I don't see why it's not possible. So that would just require us to figure out a way that we want to create some sort of a generic login that's for pro se, or that there's some sort of a box that you can check that says that this is a pro se petition and it won't put identifying information on. So yeah, that's a good question. But no, it doesn't do it yet, but it can easily do that if we want to. Is that something that other people think that they would do around the state? Seeing some nods, yeah. Okay. Does anyone else have any other questions or any on the phone? Mm-hmm. Right. And I guess, the only thing that we'd have to wonder about is, what our professional responsibility implications are for preparing petitions but not representing. Okay, good.
Okay, just something on that. Let me make one announcement. I just want to let everybody know that the user guide that Mike mentioned at the beginning is available on the plan website. It's at www.palegalAid.net, and if you click the resource link at the top of the navigation bar, it's listed in the resources, and it's right at the top because it's the latest resource that was added. So,
and you can also, and that guide, the Word guide, is easier to print out, so if you want something on your desk, that's what you should use. But if you want just, again, quick online help, remember you can always click this help button, and it's all of the same information here as is in the Word guide, including the prerequisites, which actually I do need to update. You need OpenOffice or Word 2007 or later, and like I said, you also need either Microsoft or Firefox, or Google Chrome or Safari. You can't use Internet Explorer.
yes. Yes.
Yes, the question is whether the webcast that we just did was recorded as. Something else that I might do is record a very quick video of just using it as opposed to the full presentation, so you don't have to sit and watch an hour presentation when you want about 10 minutes worth of that. So I might try to do that as well. Any other questions? Great. Thank you guys for coming, and I hope that you guys will use this.